Uncle Anthony Zerilli, we might not be here in this particular case and on the indictment.
Jack Tocco later blamed Zerilli in large part for the gam tax convictions, and Zerilli's criminal career came to a dead end after 50-plus years as a made man.
As I said before, Zerilli did a jail term, and when he came out last April, he's been persona non grata with the Detroit Mafia. Rumor on the street is that Jack Tocco was so upset with him for his behavior, he's taken his stripes away, knocked him down from underboss, and put him on the shelf. Tony Zerilli's been walking around town kind of not in the best of light, looking for money. Jack Tocco apparently won't take his calls, and Tony Zerilli's not really at the point that I think he thought he'd be, sitting here in his 80s now. And it really kind of tells the story of two first cousins in Jack Tocco and Tony Zerilli, and kind of the paths that they both took. And as we are today, Tony Zerilli's really not in the fold anymore. Jack Tocco's still on top. It really tells the whole story.
Boss Jack Tocco, his brother Tony, along with Anthony the Bull Corrado, Big Paulie Corrado, and Novi Tocco, all went to trial in 1998. With the exception of reputed consigliere Tony Tocco, who was believed to have taken over as acting boss when his older brother Jack was sentenced to time in prison, all the main targets of the gam tax prosecution were convicted.
But each one of the 3 counts on which Jack Tocco was convicted, 2 RICO counts and a conspiracy to commit extortion, each carried a 20-year maximum sentence.
Jack Tocco had been found guilty by the jury of being the head of the Detroit La Cosa Nostra family and directing and allowing his subordinates to carry out various criminal activities dating back into the 1960s.
The trial judge in the case of Jack Tocco elected to give him 1 year and 1 day in prison.
Tocco's lenient sentence shocked the government. Federal prosecutors appealed the sentence 2 different times with little result, and Tocco ultimately served less than 3 years in prison.
All the other defendants who were convicted, Novi Tocco, Paul Corrado, and Dominic Corrado, and ultimately Tony Zerilli, all received much more significant sentences than that. Novi was able to get an early release because he agreed to cooperate with the government, but Jack Tocco got a relatively minor sentence, much less than would be suggested by a person whom the jury determined to be the head of the family and the person responsible for all the activities committed by all the other people. But John Corbett O'Meara, U.S. District Court judge, elected to give him the sentence. Jack Tocco can never go around anymore and claim to be a businessman. He's a convicted racketeer and a convicted extortionist, and that's going to follow him forever, and he can never deny that, and he can never hold himself out again as a pillar of the community, in my judgment.
Well, Jack Tocco was convicted in 1998 as being the boss of the Detroit family of La Cosa Nostra. I believe they referred to it as the combination. Jack Tocco came out in trial. He relayed messages through his underlings, capos, to carry out the business that they needed to carry out.
Tony Giacalone and Tony Zerilli were severed from the main gam tax trial due to health reasons. Tony Giacalone, the public face of Detroit's La Cosa Nostra for nearly 40 years, died of cancer in 2001 before going to trial. Tony Z finally went to trial himself in 2002 and was convicted of multiple RICO law violations. The late 1990s and into the new millennium were undoubtedly the most difficult period in the Detroit family's history, but Tony Tocco and Jackie the Kid Giacalone were still on the street, and it was still business as usual.
We're standing here off 8 Mile, the infamous 8 Mile Road, made famous by Eminem's movie 8 Mile, is notorious for separating the suburbs from the city of Detroit proper. Dozens of strip clubs kind of line this road right here and have traditionally paid the street tax to the Detroit La Cosa Nostra. Now, back in 2001, at this intersection right here, this turnaround on Evergreen and 8 Mile was the site of possibly the last mob murder in Detroit.
John Jarjosa was a family associate sent to prison in the gam tax bust for helping shake down strip clubs in Metro Detroit. While he was gone, his son, John Jr., was left to run their family strip club, John John's, on Mound Road, as well as several others.
Now, Jarjosa Jr. was actually stalked on the afternoon of his death. He left a strip club that him and his father owned called City Heat, which was several miles east of here, and was going to do a workout at Bally's, came up this road, was making a turnaround here at Evergreen, and was boxed in by two cars. One of the members of one of the cars got out and unloaded a clip into Mr. Jarjosa Jr. in his car. He died. Although the FBI has not categorized this as a mob murder, a lot of people believe that it had possible mob ties. And if you go down several miles east of here to 8 and Gratiot, you find the new headquarters of reputed current Detroit LCN capo Frankie the Bomb Bommarito. Frankie Bomb has set up a new headquarters over at 8 and Gratiot, Danny Boy's Social Club, where he holds court. That area, which is kind of the borderline between Warren and Detroit, has always been Frankie Bomb's territory, and he runs it with an iron fist. Now, Frankie Bomb is one of the more elderly, reputed capos, but make no mistake about it, there is a highly skilled and very proficient group of administrators standing behind them, ready to take their place. I'm talking about guys like Jackie the Kid Giacalone, reputed capos Tony Palazzola and Anthony Chicago Tony LaPiana, guys that the several authorities believe will be the next powers to take over the Detroit Mafia. And needless to say, the Detroit Mafia in the future is pretty safe and sound from this point forward.
The government had high hopes that the Gamtax case would put the Detroit combination out of business. But a decade later, RICO indictments and conspiracy cases are still being made against the family for similar crimes to those outlined in the Gamtax case.
Jack V. Giacalone, who's the son of Billy Giacalone, has been convicted himself in the past of gambling and RICO, and has a...
And Pete Tocco, who was Jack's nephew and an alleged capo, just recently got...
Right, as recently as 2006, 4 or 5 members of the Detroit LCN were convicted in another case, another RICO case, for their involvement in gambling, in money laundering, and in a variety of other criminal activities. So there's no reason to suggest that there's been a cessation of the activities that generated income for them for the past 100 years.
In March of 2006, several alleged captains, soldiers, and associates were indicted in another federal gambling conspiracy case. Indicted included Peter Tocco, nephew of Don Jack Tocco, Pete Messina, and reputed street boss Jackie the Kid Giacalone, and his driver and bodyguard, Davy the Donut Aceto. Tocco, Messina, and Aceto all pled guilty, but Jackie the Kid went to trial in March of '07 and was acquitted on all charges.
I think the Mafia, or the La Cosa Nostra in Detroit, it's still here, it's still viable, it will still be here. This is what these guys know, this is how they were brought up, it's inbred in them, it's in their blood.
And the syndicate is rooted in family. I mean, same family names that were running the family in 1930 are running the family in 2009.
They are still a very viable family. They are cloaking themselves in legitimate business, if you will, a lot more now than ever. But I'm not saying they're doing legitimate business.
And they're still doing the same thing today they were doing 20 years ago. And so
the games will still be the same. The faces will change.
Jack Tocco was the longest serving LCN boss in the United States. They are just very good, they're very smart, they don't have internal strife that generates public opinion or public reaction. They don't go to the press, they don't go to the cops. They keep everything very low key, and this has worked to their advantage. It's a very select, very small group of people. The Mafia has a history in this country of over 100 years. It's been said to be dead on numerous occasions. Much like Mark Twain, I think the reports of its demise have been greatly exaggerated. These people have spent their entire lives doing one thing. People still like to bet on sports. People still engage in the vices that have made the LCN successful in the past. And I see no reason to anticipate that that's going to change in the foreseeable future.
We're standing outside the Stage Deli off Orchard Lake Road. Stage Deli's been around here for quite a long time, and is actually a popular meeting place for guys like Alan Hilth and Jackie Giacalone. It's off Orchard Lake Road, which over the last 5 to 10 years has become kind of a mobile headquarters for Jackie Giacalone, Jackie the Kid, Jackie the Bathrobe, Jackie V as the nicknames he goes by. Realistically, Jackie's been running the street probably since the mid-90s after the Gamtax bust, and his uncle Tony Jack got sick with cancer. Jackie won't have meetings in cars or at his house. He prefers, you know, doing a drive up and down Orchard Lake Road every day, meeting people at different locations. He'll take one of his lieutenants and just kind of walk the aisles at Best Buy or Kmart and tell him what he needs. So from a very early age, Jackie was kind of being groomed, and as of today, he is the heir apparent. He will take over from Jack Tocco when Jack passes, and finally the Jackalonis, who have really been on the street for the entirety of their careers, all the way since the 1930s and 40s, will finally get one of their own at the very top on the throne. Jackie.
There has been some form of Sicilian organized crime in the United States for nearly 120 years. It is a dark thread woven through the tapestry of American culture, and nowhere in the country has La Cosa Nostra made itself more a part of the community than in Detroit. As the second decade of the new millennium opens, boss Jack Tocco enters his 30th year of power and is the longest-serving Don in America, just as his predecessor Joe Zarelli was before him. The Detroit family has adapted to the changing world around them, always staying one step ahead of the law, and have only preyed upon those that brought themselves into their orbit. The Detroit La Cosa Nostra truly is America's most successful mafia family.